Have you ever felt like you needed to hire a copywriter, but you didn't have the money to do it? In this video, I'm going to tell you how to think like a copywriter if you can't afford to hire one. Having persuasive words throughout your website and everything that you do is very important, and it can mean the difference between getting a sale and not getting a sale. But sometimes hiring a copywriter can be really expensive. As a certified copywriter myself, I know that there are 5 things that I do on a regular basis when I'm writing copy, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek back into the world of a copywriter so that you can write better copy for yourself. I'm Lori Reeves, the founder of Brand Strength and the creator of BrandSchool. I'm obsessed with helping people change the world. I love working with coaches, consultants, and other professional service providers to help them finally reach their revenue goals by effectively reaching more of the people who need them most. Okay, so let's dig into it. How to think like a copywriter. Tip number 1 is focus on communicating clearly and persuasively, not on being entertaining. Copy is not supposed to entertain. Yes, it is supposed to grab your attention, but it's not written for entertainment's sake. If you are not being clear, you will lose people because the confused mind does not buy. There's a saying that a lot of copywriters use. If you confuse, you lose. So if you're trying to be clever or you're trying to put something in a way that sounds a lot different from anything that you've ever heard out there, but still kind of makes it confusing about what you're talking about, scrap that. Go with something that's really clear and descriptive, even if it's not the most entertaining thing that you could possibly put together. Tip number 2. In a long-form sales page, one that goes on and on and on and is typically used for selling one product, and typically, this is just a little extra tip in tip 2, the more expensive the product, the longer the sales page is typically. So if you're selling a product for $27, you don't need a really long sales page. But if you're selling something for $2,000, $5,000, you need to go ahead and use a long-form sales page. But here's a tip if you're creating one of those. All of your big headlines down the page should tell their own story. People skim, scan, and scroll before they really dig in. They're trying to see, is this something that I should spend time learning about, reading about, allowing myself to get fired up about wanting to buy? Or is this something that I can just kind of say, no, not this time, and move on? So if you can tell the story of why somebody needs what you're selling and why they should be excited about the offering that you have in the headlines that go down the page, that's what people will skim, scan, and scroll through first. So if you can grab their attention by telling them the whole story in those headlines, you're going to have a much better chance that they'll dig into the content and actually read more of the sales page. Tip number 3. There are copywriting principles that work and they're used a lot. Don't feel like you're going to be boring or people are going to think you're unoriginal if you use them. The reason they're used a lot is because they work. Again, this is kind of like tip number 1. If you're going to try to be getting fancy and clever, you're probably going outside of what has been proven to work, and you need to just rein it back in. Find something that's tried and true and put your words into that format, and I promise you it will work better for you than something that you're trying to do that looks different from what everybody else is doing just so that you can feel a little bit more original. Tip number 4. Remove every unnecessary word in your copy. Now I'm talking about ads, social media posts, blog posts, anything you're writing for your business. If you want people's eyes on it, make it as short as possible. People do not like to be confronted with a really long block of text. I know you've probably seen one and you're like, ugh, I just don't have the energy to even attempt starting to read this. So the more concise you can make everything, the better off you'll be. Shorter sentences are better than longer sentences. Shorter paragraphs are better than longer paragraphs. So get brutal. Get in there with a machete and cut out every unnecessary word. Make sure that it still is conveying the exact same message, But if you can convey a concept with 1 or 2 words where you had 3 to 5 before, change it out so that you can make it shorter and much easier to digest. Tip number 5, you cannot create desire with your copy. The desire has to be there first. You can only capitalize on that desire and attempt to amplify it. You cannot make somebody have a desire for what you are selling. But if the desire is already there, you can convince them to buy your offering so that they can resolve the problem that they're having. But if there is no desire for what you're selling, you cannot manufacture that desire. So make sure that you're super clear on what the struggle is, on what the pain point is. And if you are not 100% clear on that so that you can amplify the desire that your customers have, you need to go back and do more market research. So those are 5 tips so that you can think like a copywriter. Tip number 1, focus on clarity and being persuasive, not entertaining. Tip number 2, make sure your headings in a long sales page read like a story. Tip number 3, use proven copywriting principles and formats and structures that work. Tip number 4, remove every unnecessary word from everything that you write. And tip number 5, you cannot create desire. You can only amplify and capitalize on the desire that already exists. I hope this is helpful for you so that you can write more persuasive copy that gets what you are doing for people into more people's hands, because I know that you have an idea that can change the world, and I am here cheering you on, giving you the tools that you need so that you can go out and make a bigger change in the world than you're making right now. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a like. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel so that you'll see when every video is released. I'd love to see you back here in another video, and I'll talk to you soon.